and welcome to the Chronicles of Nabhan. Welcome to my first podcast / audio / recording of any sort, really. I'm going to recite an essay which I wrote recently. It's a review on The Ice Dragon by George R. R. Martin, so without further ado, let's take it away. The story of Adara and the Ice Dragon is mythic, endearing, and frightening. It is structured as a traditional coming-of-age story, in which the protagonist, the 7-year-old Adara, finds a companion in the eponymous Ice Dragon. The Ice Dragon is a wonderful short read. Written by George R. R. Martin, it is a standalone mythology within the Ice and Fire literary canon. Whilst George R. R. Martin has previously denied that Adara's adventures in the Ice Dragon take place in the same literary universe as the rest of A Song of Ice and Fire collection, the wintry backdrop provides an interesting insight into the long night. The long night in A Song of Ice and Fire is a mythological Armageddon that takes place in the winter, thousands of years before the current events of both A Song of Ice and Fire and the Game of Thrones TV series. It seems impossible to read Adara's journey outside of the world of Ice and Fire context. Adara liked the winter best of all, for when the world grew cold, the Ice Dragon came. Written and published years before A Song of Ice and Fire, the Ice Dragon seems well placed as the mythic history of contemporary Westeros. Adara is a winter child, born at a time when the winters are long and summers are scarce. She is a child with an unnatural affinity to cold. Her mother passed away at her birth, and this death has affected her father's affection toward Adara. The story tells us about Adara's friendship with the Ice Dragon during a time of war, which her uncle Hal is fighting in. Her father John is protective of Adara, as well as her older brother and sister Jeff and Terry. There is a melancholy to Adara's father John. His presence is reminiscent of the proud, silent figures that maraud Westeros. His lack of physical affection for Adara is haunting. Adara, as a young winter child, seems to delight in the cold environment. Every so often, he would hug Adara as well, but only during the long winters. But there would be no smiles then. He never hugged her at all during the summers. During the summers, he was too busy. The story takes place in the midst of a great war between opposing factions, perhaps during the Age of Heroes, which is referenced in The World of Ice and Fire, or we can't be sure. And in this battle, in the novella, in which the violence of war threatens farms, families, and livestock, the real factors emerge. Dragons. The war had been going on for all of Adara's life. Both A Song of Ice and Fire and The World of Ice and Fire have hinted at the cycle of violence which occurred when dragons were ubiquitous. The Valyrian supremacy was built on dragon warfare. The Dance of Dragons demonstrated how Westeros was decimated by a Targaryen civil war that was dependent on dragon flame. In this instance, Martin's prose provides us an insight into the short and fierce art of dragon warfare. And in this backdrop, the eponymous hero emerges, the Ice Dragon. The World of Ice and Fire hinted at the existence of ice dragons in the north of the known world, where sailors have stated that they have seen these magnificent creatures in the seas. In this case, Adara's story focus provides the reader with an insight into dragon behavior. As the books and TV series have demonstrated, human beings can emotionally connect to both direwolves and dragons. The Stark children are synchronized to such an extent that they are explicitly wargs, those that can skin change, and therefore act and behave as their direwolf. Yet Martin also suggests that these magical creatures have intellectual agency. It is this autonomy that leads Nymeria to make her own choice and not follow Arya to Winterfell. but the sheer physical and aesthetic beauty of the ice dragon stands it apart from other creatures. There is an ethereal bond which ties human to dragon. The ice dragon breathed death into the world, death in quiet, in cold. But Adara was not afraid. She was a winter child, and the dragon was her secret. This connection seems both celestial and fateful. What do I mean by this? When the direwolves first appear to the Stark family, there is a sense of providence, especially with the physical state of the direwolf mother, which has been speared by the symbolic Baratheon stag. The birth of dragons in current events in A Song of Ice and Fire is tied to destiny. If we posit the ice dragon into the Song of Ice and Fire universe, its existence reflects the dichotomy between ice and fire. The ice dragon is a biological paradox. The dragon is fire made flesh. Yet the ice dragon subverts this assumption. Its body is icy, and perhaps reflects the haunting beauty of the others in the opening chapter of A Song of Ice and Fire. Therefore, it is implied that the ice dragon is ice made flesh. Its muscle structure reflects its severe environment. Instead of breathing fire, it breathes ice. The ice dragon is the antithesis to the fire-breathing dragon. The ice dragon breathed cold. Ice formed when it breathed. Warmth fled. Fires guttered and went out, shriven by the chill. It is difficult to read this short story as apart from Martin's other works. Adara and the Ice Dragon's heroic journey reflects the epic genre, and the Ice Dragon is an epic creature. Its wondrous stature is similar to Odin's Sleipnir, the eight-legged horse in Norse mythology. It stands apart from ordinary dragons physically. The Ice Dragon was a crystalline white, that shade of white that is so hard and cold that is almost blue. Whilst magic is not excessively referred to in Adara's story, there is implication that dragons by their very existence are magical in the world of Ice and Fire universe. Even in a backdrop where dragons are used in warfare, the Ice Dragon remains fantastical. And this is where the relationship between Adara and the Ice Dragon can provide an important insight into Martin's notion of humanity. Nature is overtly powerful, and the Ice Dragon represents the sublime, a term which Shelley used to describe the overwhelming sense of God through nature. The beauty of winter is seen through the environmental textures described in Adara's icy playground. The Ice Dragon's size belies its gentle and protective behaviour toward Adara. The Ice Dragon is implicitly celestial by virtue of its descent from the skies. It organically embodies the notion that worldly animals are made from water. Therefore, its flight through clouds is also natural. Its eyes were clear and deep and icy. Its wings were vast and bat-like, coloured all a faint, translucent blue. When the Ice Dragon decides to fight against the invading dragon battalion, which has taken over Adara's family farm, the text suggests the Ice Dragon's emotional agency. The Ice Dragon demonstrates its empathy towards Adara and seems to make an active decision to fight. The battle between fire and ice becomes a violent conflict between three fire-breathing dragons and the Ice Dragon. Which leads us to the question, did the Ice Dragon know that it would perish? It seems likely. Its love and affection for Adara is demonstrated by this sacrifice. Its devastating qualities are seen by the way it breathes ice and freezes anything it comes across. The battle between the two different types of dragons therefore demonstrates the battle between two different types of elements. Adara could see the clouds through them, and oftentimes the moon and stars, when the beast wheeled in frozen circles through the skies. The ice dragon's demise is heroic. It sacrifices its own life to preserve Adara's life. The vicious fight where its own wing is melted away before it finally defeats the 3 dragons demonstrates courage. Even within this battle, Martin highlights the significance of heroism. As such, the ice dragon's sacrifices demonstrate Homeric values in combat, to push forward and to complete an objective regardless of the odds. The ice dragon's connection with Adara perhaps indicates the latter's magical qualities. Just as the Starks can bond with the direwolves, so Adara's affection for the ice dragon demonstrates her innate understanding with the ice dragon. And only a winter child and the ice dragon who loved her could save her world from destruction. But ultimately, it is another example where a natural being is mechanized as an instrument of warfare. The climactic fight scene is inherently tragic, as the story implies that only a cool pond of water remains where the ice dragon once stood. Nature is therefore beholden to man's actions. If the warring kingdom had not invaded Adara's homeland with dragons, the ice dragon would not have died. This paradox between human behavior and nature is at the crux of Martin's storytelling. Adara, in this instance, is intriguing. Her innocence functions as a result of her young age, but the emotional friendship that she has with the ice dragon demonstrates her understanding of control. Her flight on top of the ice dragon is both freeing and dizzying. There is a physical sense of space as she explores the landscape. There is a sense of vastness. When the ice dragon beat its wings, the cold winds blew, and the snow swirled and scurried, and the world seemed to shrink and shiver. Where is the ice dragon in the temporal space of the World and Ice and Fire universe? The winter season is not enough to indicate that these events occur during the long night. As the tales of Dunk and Egg seem to indicate, the extreme seasons have constantly fluctuated. In the latter stories, Westeros is going through a heatwave, perhaps an interesting mirror to the current harsh winter. On the other hand, the Ice Dragon is different from Martin's other works, despite the pathetic fallacies suggested by Adara's Winter Joy. Winter and summer alternate, yet Adara's visceral joy is attached to the freedom that winter brings. As such, the Ice Dragon is unequivocally associated to the winter season. Its biological makeup allows it to function effectively in the frosty backdrop. But the reader's emotional attachment arises due to Adara's innocence that is drawn to the Ice Dragon. "Please," she whispered once again, "help me." Her voice was thin and small. The Ice Dragon turned. What seems to set apart the Ice Dragon is its agency to heroically intervene in battle by sacrificing itself for a human. Its ethereal beauty is rendered obsolete, however, as fire destroys its wing during its act of heroism. But its ultimate triumph in saving Adara's family perhaps indicates Martin's notion of the true epic story, in which altruism is tied to self-sacrifice. Accordingly, the Ice Dragon is the true hero of the novella, by looking beyond subjective well-being, and instead gives its life for Adara and her family. The Ice Dragon painfully raised its head once more, and made the only sound that Adara ever heard it make, a terrible thin cry, full of melancholy, like the sound the north wind makes when it moves around the towers and battlements of the white castle that stands empty in the land of always winter.